Well, hi. I usually do these very differently, where I do the big introduction and talk about the vocabulary of the day. However, it's kind of rainy, and I've been thinking a lot about Bong Joon-ho's very famous quote after the Oscars, which goes, "They're actually able to discover a whole new world if you just get over the 1 inch barrier." And so I thought, why don't I do a little bit of a different style of a video where I'm more explaining the code, and then also walk you through what it would be like, as you probably might guess, putting captions into Dolby.io streaming. And so, why are captions really important? Well, actually, as somebody whose main language is Spanish, I grew up knowing English through subtitles. It was my way of learning and how I have become educated in even other languages than itself. So not only does it allow for broader audiences to be introduced to your content, it also is about accessibility. And the best thing about it is that it actually does not have any genre in itself. So live events, sports, classrooms, lectures, you name it. Anything goes, captions can be needed. And so, in conjunction with Web Captioner, which is a real-time application that allows to do captions from the browser, they have a feature that does over 40 languages and dialects. It actually is customizable depending on the text that you might need. And best of all, it's actually pretty accurate in the transcription, even with somebody with an accent. And so today I just wanted to walk you through what that experience is like by creating a button in Dolby.io viewer. So join me. Okay, I'm already in it, but I'm gonna type Web Captioner. The whole idea of this is that you do obviously have to log in. This will be running and then basically outsourcing the language that is being projected from here into our viewer that we're gonna build. So I'm gonna go into my settings. From settings, I'm gonna go into experiments. And below this video, there's going to be a link that I need you to click on it. And that would create the appearance of the share. The share would actually allow for it to create like a URL that you can then use it as the SRC when we're iframing and projecting which type of button it should be. So once that's happening, you might actually see it already, but I'm gonna close it out here, and I'm gonna click on the share caption, which is kind of like a tiny antenna here. There, I would click on get link. I have it at random, so it expires after 48 hours. And what I'm gonna do is go to use in your broadcasting application, and this is the link that we're gonna copy for later. For now, it's not necessary. So what I'm gonna have you guys do now, if you want to follow along, is actually open up an editor. You can use whatever. Right now I'm just using Visual Studio, and I'm gonna open this up so it actually looks a lot prettier, and I'm gonna talk it through. So HTML file, right? The first thing I'm gonna do is essentially create that viewer experience, right? So to start off, I created a container called player, and this is more relative to how the size of the screen kind of looks like, the black, the not live kind of appearance. For that, I made the position relative to whatever your browser is, and then overflowing, I hit it, but these numbers are pretty good in the sense of it being representative of how we usually do our browser experience. But for it to be truly cinematic, 16:9 aspect ratio. So for padding on top, what I did was divide 9 by 16, and that would give me 56.25 percentage. Now, the millicast container, for most of you that might already know, but this is mainly for those that don't know, millicast was actually the name of the company before it got acquired by Dolby.io. So it might actually be in a lot of our code because legacy. So the position, I wanted to be absolute just because I wanted it to be modifiable depending on the size that I have. I want to block it out for now, the value for display. My top, left, bottom, and right are going to be 0, but I want my width and my height to be 100%, and then no borders. Now the next thing would be Captioner and Captions. Captioner would be essentially the background behind the text in itself, because sometimes the picture might be really bright and you might not see like the white captions. So for that, I made the position absolute, so obviously relative to whatever the your browser is. My left and my bottom are gonna be 0, but my width I wanted to take off from like side to side, so that's 100, and then the height I put it to 23%. This can be like modified to whatever your taste is like. I just don't want it to take up the entire screen, but not too little, so 23 is good for me. The opacity I put it almost at a half, so 0.4, and the frame border is going to be none, and I don't want no scrolling. Now the next thing would be the captions, so absolute, so it modifies in itself, and the text I didn't put it that big, so 1%, and then size wise 2% for the left. And I want it to also be blocking out. So the important thing why my display is blocked out several times is the idea that I can use it as a true or false statement when I'm deciding whether Web Captioner is presenting. Then if it is presenting, pull that and then show it into my viewer. For the next things that I'm going to talk about, actually these are not necessary. These are mostly like stylized. But if you would like to do exactly what I did, I decided to create the hoover for the captions, so kind of looks nice when the next ones kind of switch around. So I did the top 1% and then the right 1% absolute for position. The inline and the span D block are essentially like switching to the next line when it's like running, so it doesn't continue all along. It just cuts to the next one and the same thing, and it just creates blocks of it. Okay, so now that I've finished off the entire style of how the web is going to look and the viewer in itself, I actually want to create a script to create the functionality of the button in itself, right? To do the action. I want the type to be JavaScript, and my function called close C from closed caption is essentially going to do, it's a conditional. So if Web Captioner is running and if text is actually happening, then take that and then project it back into the Dolby.io streaming viewer and just roll it in. If nothing is happening over there, then nothing happens over here, right? So I do this by get element by ID of the captions, and then I do a triple equal. So not only am I checking if it's true or false, but I'm also checking if it's equal in data type. So if text is running, change that from block to none, so it actually will start rolling in the text. If nothing is happening, then remain block. Before closing out everything, I actually am going to create a class called player, and then I'm going to have different iframes where I'm basically telling, hey, this is where you're outsourcing the information from. The first class is going to be called millicast, and my SRC is actually going to be from Dolby.io. So if I go into my streaming dashboard, this is actually, I have a video about this if you're unfamiliar with this entire platform, and it walks you through how to create a stream token and what the different subdivisions are. But I'm going to go into my December stream token, and then I'll go into my APIs tab. From there, I'm going to copy the hosted player path, and I'm going to switch it, or paste it in your case. From there, my frame borders, none, no scrolling, plays in line, and allows full screen. And I'm going to close out that iframe. Now, the second iframe is actually, I'm going to start it out with the ID of captions, because in this one, it actually needs to know where things are going and where is outsourcing it. The class I'm going to put in for captioner, so this would mean like contain it within that space. And then the SRC is actually going to be the link that I told you at the beginning. So I'm going to go into share captions, and then in the use in your broadcasting application, copy that link, and then go here, and then voila, copy, replace it, whatever you like. Close out that iframe. And then lastly, creating my button, my ID is going to be CC for short for closed caption, the class captions, so it knows, hey, this is where you're projecting the words. My type is button, and once you click on it, so the on click action, and then a little bit of a text, so CC. So now that all that is done, I'm going to save it, and I'm actually going to execute it. So it's going to open up. And as you can see, this is the viewer in itself. Nothing is happening. It's not live. If I click on the button, you can actually see the background of those captions that I was telling you about. But before we get started, or before you even see anything, you have to go back to the Dolby IO dashboard. And I'm going to go into tokens details and then click broadcast. From broadcast, I need to click start. Hi, everybody. And then you can actually start seeing it here. So I'm going to put it side by side, right? Now it's rolling live, right? Are you going? And then I go back into Web Captioner and I click start captioning. And so you are now seeing the wonderful technology of how this is all working. Obviously, we're talking so much about the absolute and everything. So if I pull it full screen, this is how it's happening. And honestly, that's it, folks. Thank you so much for joining. This has been very lovely. Let me know if you're interested in having me explain other like coding tutorials. I'm more than happy to do it. This was really fun. And I hope you enjoy yourself too. So